There was never a Halloween night quite like the one that ended in fire and blood. The town of Haddonfield, Illinois, now half empty and sleepless, bore the weight of tragedy on its shoulders. Following the brutal events of Halloween Kills, the shape of death itself, Michael Myers, had vanished. No body was found, no sign of escape, only the blood, so much blood. But the darkness didn't leave with him. It clung to the cracked sidewalks, the broken windows, the silence between every closed door. It festered, waiting. Miles away, deep in the decaying backwoods of New Jersey, another evil had long since been buried, or so they believed. Camp Crystal Lake, long abandoned, fenced off and left to rot, had become the site of hushed murmurs and forgotten nightmares. But in the shadows beneath the earth, ancient whispers stirred, whispers of a mask, a machete, and a boy who drowned in sorrow and came back as a monster. And they were listening. In a decrepit warehouse just outside Santa Mira, California, masked figures in robes, the last remnants of Silver Shamrock novelties, had gathered again. Decades ago, their plan to sacrifice children using cursed Halloween masks and Stonehenge fragments had been stopped. But they had not died out. They had evolved, and now they had found something new. Something worse, the Black Book of Samhain. Unearthed from Celtic ruins and infused with the same dark forces that once powered their old rituals. Within its pages, a ritual long forbidden, resurrection through rage. Jason Voorhees was their target, but not as an idol, as a weapon. Their aim was simple. Control Jason, unleash him in Haddonfield, and lure Michael Myers from the void. The ultimate test, 2 avatars of death, 1 victor. The loser's soul would be harvested for their dark cause, and the winner, well, they hoped to chain him with runes to bind the beast as their eternal slayer. They thought they could control Jason. They were wrong. Beneath a blood-red moon, they chanted in unison, encircling a makeshift altar of bones, moss, and shattered hockey masks. A decayed corpse, towering, hulking, still buried under a tangle of lakeweed and chains, lay still at the center. Lightning cracked the sky. The body twitched. The robed acolytes paused. One stepped forward, holding a dagger etched with runes, preparing the final cut. Jason sat up, no sound. Just blood. The ritual had worked, but not as intended. The room fell into chaos as Jason stood, silent and monstrous, machete clutched in his blackened hand. Screams were silenced one by one, as the warehouse was painted in crimson and lit by the unholy glow of pumpkin orange flames. Jason stepped through the fire, untouched. And in the ashes of the failed resurrection, a single word was carved into the cement by the dying cult leader's blood-soaked hand. Haddonfield. Something had been awakened. Not just Jason, but something deeper. A calling in his bones. A presence like his. A rival. Now he walks toward it. And Michael, somewhere in the shadows of Haddonfield, begins to stir. A storm is coming. A war of monsters. The leaves danced with an unnatural chill in the air. Halloween loomed again, but there were no trick-or-treaters, no decorations, no joy. Haddonfield was under lockdown. After the events of Halloween Kills, the town lived in paranoia. They had seen the boogeyman, and he had walked through fire and gunshots like a phantom. But now, something new had come. It began with the disappearance of a hunter outside Haddonfield's outskirts. Then a couple found flayed in their cabin, hacked apart with the precision of a butcher. The local police thought it was Michael Myers. Zalwaras returned once more. The sheriff prepared for chaos. But Laurie Strode, she felt something different. "It's not him," she muttered, staring at the window of her farmhouse. "This is colder." She was right. Jason Voorhees had arrived. Wearing the rot of the grave and the rusted remains of his chains, Jason trudged through the farmlands, headed toward the town center like a specter of vengeance. He wasn't searching for victims. He was hunting something familiar. A scent, a rage, a soul like his, Michael. Meanwhile, hidden beneath Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, in the emergency wing's abandoned tunnels, a man lay motionless on a stretcher. No heartbeat, no breathing. Michael Myers. But something was stirring in the dark. Across town, whispers of the massacre at Santa Mira had reached a lone survivor of the Silver Shamrock cult. A defector. Dr. Cyrus Reeve. He arrived in town with one goal: warn someone, anyone, that Jason Voorhees had not just been resurrected, he had been guided here. It was supposed to be a duel, he said to the sheriff. Now it's a massacre in the making. The sheriff ignored him. Lori didn't. She remembered the look in Jason's eye the night he arrived. Not cold, not empty. Consumed. The same as Michael, but more wild. That night, it happened. Downtown Haddonfield. Jason's machete split open the doors of a Halloween store. A teenager hiding inside didn't stand a chance. Blood coated the walls. Panic rippled through the town once more. Then, at the stroke of midnight, as if summoned by the bloodshed, Michael returned. He stepped into the light, mask cracked from the last fight, coveralls torn and burned, but alive. The town plunged into chaos. Police flooded the streets, evacuations ordered, blockades established. But Lori didn't run. She knew it wasn't just another Halloween night, it was a convergence. As fate would have it, their paths met in Old Haddonfield Cemetery, a place where countless victims of both men now rested. Jason entered first, dragging his blade behind him like a whisper of death. Then Michael stepped forward, silent and still. No words, no noise, just violence. The clash was unlike anything Haddonfield had seen. Two monsters, titans in their own right, colliding like ancient gods. Jason's brute strength, feral and unyielding. Michael's methodical rage, cold and surgical. Gravestones shattered, trees cracked in half, blood soaked into the earth. But neither fell. It wasn't a fight, it was a message. Lori watched from a distance and realized they were locked in a death spiral, and the town was their battlefield. But more than that, there was something beneath it all. A force, something darker. The resurrection had awakened a curse, not just a rivalry. Silver Shamrock's books had warned of this. If two avatars of death clash on All Hallows Eve and the balance breaks, the seal will open. And Lori understood. This wasn't the final battle. It was the beginning of something worse. The town of Haddonfield had seen horror before, the type that leaves scars on both flesh and soul. But tonight it bore witness to something ancient, something far older than either killer. The battle in the cemetery left a crater where bones once rested, desecrating graves as the clash of machete and kitchen knife thundered into the skies. Jason Voorhees, brutal and hulking, seemed impervious to injury, each wound he sustained sealing almost instantly. Michael Myers, the shape of evil, showed no pain as his mask cracked and blood spilled. Still, he advanced, and still they fought. But now, something else had awakened. Across town, Dr. Cyrus Reeve sat in an abandoned basement, lined with old Halloween masks and rusted machinery, flipping through the Silver Shamrock grimoire. An occult ledger passed down from those who once dabbled in pagan sacrifices disguised as trick or treating fun. He finally found the page he feared most. When two avatars of death cross blades under a harvest moon, the veil will weaken, and Samhain shall return in flesh and fire. He whispered to himself, terrified. They're not just killers, their keys. That veil, the barrier between the living and the damned, began to shudder. Across Haddonfield, people felt it. Streetlights flickered. Children screamed in their beds. Phones crackled with static. And from the woods just outside town, a thick black mist began to creep inward, swallowing sound and color alike. Back at the cemetery, the fight between Michael and Jason was interrupted by something no one, not even them, expected. The earth cracked. From below, rotted hands began to rise, clawing from their graves, victims of both killers, lost souls who died without closure, revenants. Laurie, watching from the edge of the field, gasped as skeletal figures began to claw at Jason, but not to attack, to serve. Silver Shamrock's prophecy had been misunderstood. The ritual hadn't been about ending one killer's reign. It was about awakening the army of the forgotten. Jason, chosen by death, was now something more. A Death King. Michael, undeterred, hacked his way through the risen corpses. He wasn't a leader. He was a storm, a lone force of chaos. His aura repelled the revenants, forcing them to stagger or collapse before they could strike. His stare never left Jason, and then Jason Voorhees knelt. For a moment, the battle paused. A haunting silence followed. Jason lowered his machete as the revenants surrounded him in reverence. From the shadows, another figure stepped forward, her face pale, her eyes hollow. Pamela Voorhees, Jason's mother. Resurrected by the ritual's backlash, her ghostly voice echoed across the field. End him, my son, and the world will remember your name. Forever. Jason rose. Michael gripped his knife tighter, and Haddonfield braced for the true war. Meanwhile, Laurie and Dr. Reeve regrouped at the old Myers house. They realized something crucial. The only way to end the madness was to separate the two killers. The ritual required duality, both killers alive and locked in eternal combat. If either won, the curse would spread. Samhain would rise. They needed a plan. Laurie proposed the unthinkable. We don't kill them, we trap them. And so they reached out to the one man who had survived both kinds of madness, Tommy Doyle. Now grown, hardened, and armed with occult knowledge from years of obsessing over Michael's evil, Tommy knew of a location that could serve as the trap. The Smith's Grove Asylum, long abandoned, but still humming with dark energy. Their plan was set: lure both killers there and seal them within. The battle wasn't over, but Haddonfield now had a chance. The wind howled through the ruins of Haddonfield. Power was out, streets abandoned. Shadows moved like liquid across cracked pavement. But in the distance, two figures lumbered forward, one silent and spectral, the other roaring with every step. Jason Voorhees led the revenant horde, a grotesque army of the once slain, now animated by the energies of the Silver Shamrock ritual. His body was no longer just flesh and blood. It was a tomb of rage wrapped in supernatural sinew. Behind him, the souls of those he murdered followed with gnarled fingers and hollow eyes, some wearing Halloween masks, twisted callbacks to the cult's failed experiments in Halloween 3. Michael Myers, however, was different. He didn't need followers. He needed only his purpose, the eradication of life, unbothered by wounds, ignoring pain. Michael moved with mechanical precision and silent hatred, his eyes beneath the cracked mask glowing faintly with an otherworldly fire. Samhain's influence was in him now, not around him. He had become the embodiment of its will, a shape destined to kill. The trap had been set. Laurie Strode, Tommy Doyle, and Dr. Reeve stood inside the decaying husk of Smith's Grove Asylum, having reconstructed the occult wards. once used by Dr. Wynn's thorn cult. Ancient markings had been carved into the walls. Iron chains laced with sigils were hidden in the floors. The air itself was thick with death. Once they're both in here, Dr. Reeve explained, the ritual seals them in time. They will fight forever, in a loop, with no escape. But if one of them wins, Tommy added grimly, the veil tears again. And it was Jason who arrived first. Crashing through the front gates, revenants flanking him, Jason stalked toward the asylum with the slow, thudding power of a natural disaster. But as he entered the building, a silence overtook his followers. They could not pass through the door. The wards repelled them. He was alone. And that's when Michael arrived. He stepped through the asylum's main corridor as if returning home. Blood already soaked his coveralls. His knife glinted under the emergency lighting powered by a backup generator Lori had rigged. He and Jason stared at each other. Two avatars of death, neither blinking. Then the walls shuddered. The asylum itself began to react as the two killers moved toward one another. The trap was working. The ritual had begun. And then they fought. It was more than violence. It was apocalypse in motion. Jason slammed Michael through concrete, impaling him on iron poles. Michael stabbed Jason with such speed and ferocity that sparks flew from the blade. Every strike shook the walls. Every impact bled into the surrounding magic. Blood soaked the ground, and the asylum began to change. The walls turned to stone. Time slowed. Colors faded. The asylum transformed into a liminal plane, a prison of endless night. The ritual was working. But then, it went wrong. Pamela Voorhees appeared again, her ghostly form interfering with the spell. "You will not imprison my son," she screeched. The veil ripped. The revenants outside screamed, some burning into ash, others collapsing into dust. The magic faltered. Michael broke free. Jason dropped his machete, and the asylum exploded in a burst of white light. When Lori and the others awoke, the asylum was gone, vanished. In its place, a massive crater still burning with eerie blue flames. No Jason, no Michael, no bodies. Only a mask, Michael's, resting on the edge of the hole. And beside it, Jason's cracked machete. Tommy picked up the mask, holding it with reverence. "They're not gone," Lori whispered. "Just somewhere else. Somewhere beyond time. In a dimension forged by ritual and blood, two shapes continue their battle. Forever locked in combat. Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, champions of death. Trapped in a loop of endless Halloween night. But on Earth, Silver Shamrock isn't done. Dr. Reeve, once thought dead, is seen in a shadowed basement, piecing together fragments of the grimoire and whispering to someone unseen. "I can bring them back," he says. "All I need is a child, born on Halloween." The screen fades to black, and the Silver Shamrock jingle plays, distorted, slowed, ominous. 3 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. End credit scene. The shape beneath the lake. The scene opens in crisp autumn silence. A group of teenagers, no older than 17, laugh and chatter as they move through the dense forest near the ruins of Camp Crystal Lake. The site had been closed for years, fenced off and sealed by the state, but the legends, well, those had only grown stronger. "Urban myth," one of them mutters, pushing through thick vines. "The camp's a haunted mess. Nothing ever happened here." "Dude, Jason Voorhees," another one scoffs. "The guy with the hockey mask? Totally fake, just like that Michael Myers' freak from Illinois." "Whatever," says a girl, filming on her phone. "TikTok's gonna love this." The camera pans slowly, trailing behind them as they come across the rusted Camp Crystal Lake sign. half buried in dirt. A sudden gust of wind kicks up dust and they hesitate. Then, one of them spots it. A single white mask, half buried in the soil, scorched and cracked. They move closer, curious. Next to it, a rusting machete fused into the hilt of a chef's knife. The blade glows faintly with a red hue, pulsing once, like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the screen goes black. We hear the sound of breathing, slow and mechanical. Not quite Jason's rasp, not quite Michael's silence. Then the water of the nearby lake bubbles. Something rises, it's tall, hulking. A distorted silhouette with rotting flesh and a cold white mask, fused into a hockey helmet. In one hand, a grotesque knife-machete hybrid, dripping with algae and blood. In the other, he holds a rotted silver shamrock mask, the serpent still wiggling inside. The merged being takes a single step toward the forest and vanishes into shadow. One of the teens screams in the distance.